Alright, Rick here on Certifiably Ingame with a look at Discovery Episode 4, The Butcher's Knife Cares Not for the Lamb's Cry. Which, incidentally, is, as a factoid to point out, the second longest Star Trek title. So in this episode we actually get to see what the Discovery can do, and it's pretty impressive. But I still stand by what I've said before about sudden changes in character that are done to service purely the plot rather than their own, well, character. Overall, I like this episode the most probably out of the ones that I've seen so far, despite a couple of inconsistencies. But let's get on with it. And of course, as always, share your point of view in the comments below. It's interesting to see different takes. So we start with Burnham's uniform being synthesised. Or at least I presume it's synthesis because it can't be replicated technology because that wasn't perfected yet. So she dons the completely non-replicated synthesised uniform, but of course it's missing its badge, because as a mutineer and a recruited criminal she effectively holds no rank. Her relationship with the crew hasn't improved any, as is her relationship with Saru. She also takes delivery of the last will and testament of Captain Georgiou, which has finally found its way to after 6 months of imprisonment. Anyway, we have some more tension between Burnham and Saru, and it's quite clear that Saru would be a lot happier if she just wasn't around. And in a pretty decent scene, they step out onto the bridge from the turbo lift, straight into the middle of a combat simulation headed by Captain Lorca. Now this points out very quickly and clearly that this is a scientific vessel. The crew aren't accustomed to battle situations, whereas Lorca is very much running the place like a military ship. Now whether this remains to be seen, whether or not this is going to bring them into conflict with members of the crew, but it's been working okay-ish so far, we can presume, for the last 6 months. So, to Lorca's disappointment, the Discovery blows up, in quotation marks. Then we cut to shots of the crew reacting to him basically telling them off and telling them they should do better, to be less polite, as he puts it. And oh god, holy... what are you? Never mind. I just had to... Moving on. Sorry, that was probably offensive. So, he wastes no time putting Burnham to work using her experience as a xenoanthropologist to, and in a complete twist here that I didn't see coming, investigate the monster that they pulled off of the USS Glenn. I genuinely didn't think its existence to the rest of the crew would be revealed so soon. I thought it was going to be kept behind the scenes and build towards this air of mystery and mistrust around Captain Lorca, but no, he straight up reveals it to Burnham. Makes no fuss about it. He's like, here, you recognise this, get studying it. It can absorb laser fire, it can rip through the hull, find out what makes it tick and weaponise it for Starfleet. More and more we're seeing Lorca painted as this almost result at any cost kind of character, and I'm curious to see how far that'll go. We've seen captains go off the deep end before in Star Trek, that's nothing new, we've had the story told a couple of times, but I'm curious to see it from the crew's perspective as opposed to the interceding Captain Picard or Kirk. Anyway, then we transition to the debris field of the Battle of the Binary Stars, the battle that took place in the first 2 episodes, where we find T'Kuvma's sarcophagus ship has been floating adrift, unable to move. The Klingons on board are still alive, but it appears they've practically just been left there. After the 24 Great Houses went their separate way, they apparently just ditched the House of Kor, which I guess is in keeping with Klingon customs. If they can't make it out under their own power, they don't deserve to make it out at all. So, they've been scavenging ships for parts, supplies, and food. And we also learn they've actually eaten the Starfleet crews. I suppose it's not cannibalism if they're a different species, but still. Pretty icky. But then, they are still alive, so I guess it worked. I'm sorry, hang on, look, I just need to do something to these slides. Give me a sec, hang on. Right, hang on, there it is, where is it? And... There we go, that's a bit more Klingon. So we learn that L'Rell has actually discovered, that's this Klingon by the way, that the USS Shenzhou still has an intact dilithium matrix. This is what they need to actually get out of the debris field and go to warp. But Vok is unwilling to actually salvage the ship, being as it is their enemy's vessel and the one responsible for killing T'Kuvma. And it seems, at least to this sect, that T'Kuvma has become an almost messianic figure, in the same way Kahless has. In fact, in the first episode they addressed him as T'Kuvma the Unforgettable, which is a title usually reserved for Kahless. Eventually Vok is convinced that survival is more important. So we cut back to the Discovery, where Landry and Burnham are working together to identify what this monster beastie is. Now Landry comes up with calling it the Ripper, So it's the creature, the monster, the Ripper. But it takes Burnham to point out that this creature is closely resembled to a tardigrade, a micro-animal native to Earth which also has the adorable nickname Water Bear. Despite the fact they look like vacuum cleaner bags in my opinion. Now, it's quite an interesting scene because we do get a debate between the 2 points of view. Burnham wants to study it as she would a xenoanthropologist. She wants to learn what it is, what it does, where it comes from, and not necessarily the things that Lorca wants her to find out. See, Landry is very much pushing the agenda that they need to weaponise it after all. It can resist phaser fire and do a lot of damage. Again, it can resist phaser fire and do a lot of damage. These are important points of which Landry knows, just so that we're aware. Resistant. Dangerous. Okay, moving on. Lorca eating lunch, or dinner, or don't care which, gets interrupted by the Admiral, who of course has an assignment for him, thus introducing the plot for this episode. The mining colony on Korvan 2 is under attack by Klingons. We've actually heard Korvan mentioned before in Star Trek lore, but I don't think we've ever been there. Now, the humour I thought was actually on point in this episode, with Lorca assuring the Admiral that the spore drive is ready for a long-range jump. They can be there to save the colony within minutes. And it straight away cuts to Stamets being like, there is not a chance in hell we can jump. I don't know, that tickled me, they got it right. In short, to navigate the distances they're talking about travelling in this mycelium quantum web, they'd need a supercomputer and a super advanced AI in order to do all the calculations. It seems the further they wish to travel in one jump, the greater the margin for error can be. They might wind up anywhere. And of course this is what happened to the USS Glenn. Meanwhile, back with the Klingon ship, the House of Kor, led by Kol, contacts the sarcophagus ship. And this I quite liked. They're starting to fill in all those little nitpicky blanks. Basically, Kol points out that they need the sarcophagus ship back in the fight because although it's an old vessel, it has access to cloaking technology and is in fact the only Klingon ship that has such tech, making it an invaluable asset, which raises the question, why did they leave it there in the first place? But I can suspend my disbelief on that long enough anyway, so Kol says he'll be there soon to render aid. And Black Alert issues as the Discovery prepares to jump, using its spore drive, to Korvan 2. Now this is pretty cool. We see the discs, the concentric circles of the Discovery saucer section rotate in opposite directions, powering the drive. Then it goes all wibbly wobbly and sort of folds in on itself multiple times, and bam, it's gone. Pretty cool effects to watch, but I've got to be honest, I had no idea what was happening the first time I saw it. Anyway, then it instantly reappears in completely the wrong place. They end up almost falling into the atmosphere of a star. Fortunately, they do manage to pull away in time. However, Burnham notices that the tardigrade, Ripper thing, reacted adversely to the sudden jump, just as Stamets' face reacted badly to having it hit by a giant console. We're introduced to the doctor of the ship, so +1 for recurring crew members, who continues the trend of bickering with his fellow officers by snapping at Stamets, who in turn snaps at the captain, who in turn snaps back at Stamets. I get it, it's trying to create drama amongst the crew, and okay, that's fun to watch. I do get the impression that a lot of them want to be scientists. They don't necessarily want to be on the Discovery in the middle of war. But they are. And they're all Starfleet. They should all know to behave a little bit better, respect the chain of command and so forth. Or at least that's what I feel. Everyone's tensions are so high strung and there's so much animosity between the crew at the minute. Between Saru and Burnham and Landry, Stamets and everybody, Lorca and the people directly below him. I can't help wondering how the hell the crew is functioning at all. But that's my only real gripe with this episode. Characters acting the way they do for the sake of drama. And this is probably the most I've seen this personified. Security Chief Landry decides it's going to be a good idea to try and anaesthetise an unknown organism that again is highly resilient to phaser fire and incredibly durable and dangerous and can tear through bulkheads, before opening the cell door and attempting to grab a sample. It's okay though, she's taking precautions. Look, she's got her phaser rifle. It goes tits up, it breaks out, it tries to go for the door, she tries to shoot it, and oh, what a surprise! Phaser fire doesn't work. It turns around, bites her, slams her on the floor, throws her across the room, and you know what? She dies. Oh, if only she'd had prior experiences of fighting this thing to fall back on. Oh wait, she does. I mean, come on, damn it Landry, you had one job. Alright, you had two jobs, and you balls them both up. Now, I'm not angry at her character. It was pretty good. I'm mad at the wasted potential. I liked her character, it was pretty good. It was nice to see someone on Lorca's side. She seemed to take no nonsense. She seemed capable and hard, ready for the war that was before her. And because of one inexplicable decision that they weren't getting results quick enough, or something like that, she risked everything and died. Gone. Written out. This has been my biggest problem with the show so far. It seems to go against everything her prior experiences have taught her. She knows how dangerous it is, she was there first hand, she knows it's immune to laser fire, why bother arming yourself with a rifle at all? I just don't feel like it was in character. It was done just to drive this whole compelling narrative about is it a monster or is it a victim? Oh no. Was it self-defense or did it kill her for fun? Oh no, moral dilemmas. But like I said, that was practically my only issue with this particular episode, and I feel it's an issue that's represented in the show as a whole so far. Moving on. The Klingons go over to the USS Shenzhou to actually pillage the dilithium gizmo that will get them on the way. The wrecked Shenzhou in zero gravity was pretty cool. This wasn't an inexplicable drifting ship that still has its power, this was a proper piece of space debris. We get some more character development here for L'Rell and Vok. We get to see some of their driving character forces, and potentially a blossoming Klingon romance, although there was no biting or gouging at each other just yet. So Burnham tests a couple of hypotheses and discovers that the tardigrade seems to consume, or at least commune, with all of the spores from the mushrooms. Interesting, it seems they're part of the same ecosystem. See, now I feel this was all very Trek, like the method of, well, Discovery, where they're actually learning about something rather than just blasting it to bits. It's a nice touch, it shows that although war's broken out, it's that hint that at its heart Starfleet can still be about exploration and discovery. In fact, this is the most active and happy you've seen a character like Stamets before. It's like he's finally made a breakthrough in his research, and it's not just for war. So, back with the Klingons, Kol has finally arrived representing the House of Kor. And he has brought with him a Klingon feast, because after all they've been floating in space for 6 months and have been starving. Kol announces that Vok's soldiers are now his to command because he's now saved them. Now I'm not quite certain how I feel about this. On one hand, the Klingons were starving, and Vok had effectively literally led them nowhere for the past 6 months, so why wouldn't they throw their lot in with another house? On the other side of things, there's that whole notion of Klingon honour again. Oh, hang on. There you go. No need to thank me, Kol. But I guess given the extreme situation, I can kind of understand. They just want to get out of there, they don't want to die floating in space. That's not honourable. So we go back to the Discovery, who's ready to jump once again to try resume their trip to Korvan 2 to try and save everyone. They've plugged the tardigrade into the actual spore reactor chamber itself, on the assumption that it is the missing intelligence they'll need to successfully navigate the quantum realm. So we cut to Korvan that's currently under siege, its shields fail and the colony starts being bombed when in bursts the Discovery. So we actually get to see it's actually rated for atmospheric entry. Good to know. This can probably be put down to the size of the Discovery because for once I actually get a good sense of scale from it and it's rather tiny. Anywho, as mentioned many times, the Discovery is first and foremost a science vessel despite Lorca running it as a military ship with military tactics. I doubt it actually has the armaments to fend off an entire Klingon assault team. But what it does have is a fully functioning spore jump drive, which it proceeds to use. Jumping out of the atmosphere, it leaves behind some charges which then detonate and take out the attacking Klingons. The Discovery then reappears miles away, and the crew congratulate each other on a successful rescue, while the colonists of Korvan 2 have no idea what just happened. They barely even got to see the ship. Again, this all points to the idea that all this clandestine technology and all these law-breaking discoveries that Star Trek Discovery is using might not even end up being declassified. Still, that's speculation for a later episode. I'm still holding to my quantum meddling theory. So we go back to the debris field of the Shenzhou and we find that Vok has been exiled by Kol and his Klingons. Hang on. Right, there we go. So it's only by some manipulation by L'Rell that he's actually escaped execution altogether. They decided just to leave him to die. So, effectively, she's saved his life and she says she's going to take him to the House of Kor, specifically to the matriarchs where he's going to learn to become the torchbearer that T'Kuvma believed him to be. The man to help unite the Klingons and lead them. Back on the Discovery, we unsurprisingly learn that plugging an alien organism's mind into a computer to help it navigate things is incredibly distressing to the organism in question. But oh, it's a monster, it killed Landry. perhaps we shouldn't feel bad for it at all. Alright, I'm over it, I'm fine, I don't need counselling, it's fine, let's move on. So quite clearly, as it's been said several times before, this creature is a metaphor for Burnham. It's got a reputation, people don't know how to trust it. In reality, it's just doing what it does. And in the final scene, she finally opens the casket she was given at the beginning of the episode that was containing the will. Inside is a message from Captain Georgiou simply stating that she hopes she'll be the captain one day, that she tried to be a mother/friend to her. And here's a telescope to remind you that you're first and foremost an explorer. And that was the episode. So what did I think of it? Well, yeah, I actually enjoyed it more than the last two. This one definitely hammered home the themes and the theories of Star Trek, the ethos behind it. Exploration above all, and discovery. It hints at the promise that these themes are going to be tested in the times of war. With captains like Lorca in charge that will do anything to see the Federation survive, what constitutes a step too far? And will we cross that line? Will Burnham cross that line? I was a bit less interested in the Klingon side of things this episode, but that's probably because I still can't get over the look. But in other areas the show continues to look amazing, and again, if I had to give it an arbitrary value, I'd say this was closer to a 6, maybe even a 7. Alright, so I'll wrap it up there. This is getting to be quite a long video, but let me know what you guys think as well. I can't quite put my finger on it, but this was the first episode that I truly felt like I was watching something at least related to Star Trek. So, I've been Rick. Thanks for watching. And as usual, I'll see you next time. Goodbye.